What's up, you guys? My name is Tess. Hi, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to focus on a few tips for you that you can implement to give truly your best services ever, and little things you can do to make your bosses and your clients take notice and think of you as a true professional. So these are things I have learned with time, so I'm hoping you guys can learn from my mistakes, not happen to make them yourself. So I really hope they help. Some of them are based around communication, some of them are a little bit more technical, so I really hope you guys enjoy. If you do, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really supports me, and if you can subscribe, that would mean so much. I also wanted to quickly announce I do have a podcast, so if these videos help you out, you might like my podcast. I do it with my best friend Lauren, who is also an esthetician of 10 years actually. So we've been having a lot of fun with our podcast. We just released an episode that is things we didn't learn in esthetician school, so a little bit similar to this video. I will link it below so you can listen to that as well. Alrighty, I hope you guys love this video, and I will go ahead and just dive in. Okay, let's get into the video. The first topic I want to talk about is notes. Taking thorough notes on your clients will save you. And I know it's tricky, especially for me when I usually just have like 10 minutes in between clients. It's, like I said, very fast paced, but I find, and I do this probably 90% of the time, I take notes after each appointment, and it helps me so much. So things to note with your clients are certain sensitivities, and maybe they had a little bit of a reaction to a product or a peel. Maybe you had to dial things back. Maybe you didn't use a certain ingredient. If they have allergies, if they have contraindications, those are all really important to note. And typically clients will note those kind of things on your intake form. But if you're not looking at the intake form because maybe they become a regular client, this is where your notes really come in and they save you. I get so specific with my notes. I will even note little like lifestyle things about the person because it helps me to remember them. And when you're seeing, hundreds and hundreds of people, like in the moment, you might not think you're going to forget certain things, but you likely will, just because you see so many people and we're human. So if you can note little things like what they do for a living, what they look like, sometimes I find that helps me when I go receive them in the lobby to be like, oh yeah, Becky G, she's a teacher, she, whatever little piece of information might help you to remember her. I think that's helpful to note. And I also like to always note, this is super important, what they're using at home, their home care. It's so crucial. As we know, facials are amazing, but it's what your client is putting on their skin 365 days a year that really matters the most, to be honest, because it's such a repetitive thing. So of course we want our clients on solid home care. If you can note what they're using, that is so helpful. Just the more you can note about them, contraindications, maybe they didn't like a certain thing in the facial, or they don't like certain things in general. Like I have some people who don't want their feet massaged. I will note that so you don't have to have like a little bit of an awkward interaction. But whatever you can note just will benefit you in the long run. And if something happens to go awry, which can happen, sometimes people will come back and maybe they say they had a reaction, or and this will happen, your clients might have, there's probably like 1 out of 50 people who might come back and say like, I had a reaction to this. Those notes are going to back you up and help you so much. And maybe somebody comes back and they had, some sort of a rash. If you are able to look back on your notes and remember what you used, maybe how long you did your peel for. That is always very, very helpful. Okay, my next piece of advice is to not be afraid to ask questions. And I know this is something that comes with time, this ability to have the confidence to ask questions. I know facials are thought of as really relaxing, but I wouldn't say I ever give a totally silent facial. I think there are questions you need to know as a professional before treating somebody's skin. You need to know about their skin. So are they maybe using a topical or retin-A? You should know that. What are their cleansing habits like? Do they cleanse morning and nighttime? What is their whole skincare routine? Do they cleanse their face for a good amount of time, like a minute, or do they rush it? Do they bring their home care to the gym and wash their face soon after the gym, or do they go home, drive home, make dinner, feed their dog, and then do it? That can trigger breakouts. It can also be really small things such as the toothpaste somebody is using, the laundry detergent, if it's something like Tide Pods that have a lot of fragrance, if they're using dryer sheets. Do they change their pillowcase? Do they hold their phone to their cheek? Do they apply bronzer to their cheeks if that's where they're breaking out? There's so many little things. So I think the more micro you can get and the more questions you can ask, the better you can serve them. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, and I know I've talked about it before, but that is knowing the importance of home care and knowing that you as an esthetician need to provide professional home care in order to receive the best results. So I know none of us like to feel like a salesy person, and sometimes it comes down to just being as straightforward as saying, hey, I don't like to come off like I'm trying to sell you a product at all, but if you do want help with your skin, we can certainly work together to improve the health of your skin, and I'm happy to make recommendations. So that confidence, I think, is something that comes with time. I'm not perfect at it. I have moments where I don't feel super confident in a sale. It happens to me, but it's something I am working on, and I think it just comes down to reminding yourself you're not doing it to just make money. You are doing it truly to benefit your client. And most times, of course, there's people who just want to come in to relax and get a little facial, but a lot of the times, especially with your acne clients or people who want to focus on anti-aging, a lot of the time they are coming to you because they truly want help, and you have to remember, if you can't make those recommendations, you're doing them a disservice. Next, I want to talk about checking in with your regular clients. I think a lot of times we can get comfortable with people, and sometimes you have that really personal relationship and you can't wait to chat and catch up. But something I think is very important is to, again, remember that skin is ever changing, and it's really important, even with your regular clients, to check in upon each visit. I like to ask, and I'll say, like, I know we've gone through this before, but can you just update me on your morning and your nighttime routine? Let me know if anything has changed there. And I like to get really specific and ask literally every product they're using, because sometimes it's just that one that you could have easily glossed over that is affecting their skin, their texture, causing breakouts. It can be literally just one product. So I like to ask for an update. I also like to ask how their skin reacted to the past facial if I have seen them before. I think that helps me get a better understanding of where their skin is at, and if I can make modifications or do things to make the skin stronger, maybe slightly increasing the peel strength. Maybe they really hated the extractions, maybe they didn't heal well from them, maybe they purged. So it's always good to just ask how they did after their last facial. And one other thing I like to ask sometimes, if I've never seen somebody before, I like to ask if there were certain things they didn't like about facials in the past. It's literally just a direct way of knowing what that person likes so you can better serve them. Okay, the next thing I wanted to touch on, and I think this will resonate a lot with newer Esties. I mean, and everyone can struggle with this, but it is confidence, and it's something, like, admittedly, I am working on every day. Work in progress. I do not naturally have the most confidence at all, but I try not to let it get in the way of my day-to-day or doing things that I want to do, starting a YouTube channel or starting a podcast. Having confidence doesn't mean you think you're the best, but it does mean that you believe in yourself on a certain level. And even if I don't believe in myself in that moment, I try to remind myself of where I want to be, and I try to instill in myself that I am already on the path to getting there. So I think confidence, it doesn't always mean you know entirely everything you're doing and you know all the answers. It doesn't have to mean that, but I think my top tips for if you are battling nerves in the treatment room, which I totally struggled with in school and just getting out of school, my main tips are to do everything with intention. I think instead of getting in your head and overwhelming yourself, you should just focus on one movement at a time and making it as intentional as possible. The worst thing that could happen to you is have a client say that they didn't feel you were present, they felt like your mind was somewhere else. So the best thing that you can do, and that is in your control, is being super present and intentional. People will feel that if they feel you're truly putting everything into the facial, and obviously don't make it forced or awkward, but just give your all. I like to literally, I've said this before, imagine like pouring love out of my hands, and the energy shifts with each person. So you're not always going to have the same level of confidence in every facial. But whenever I'm in doubt, the one thing that gets me through is giving literally 100% of myself. I don't think anybody can fault you if you truly gave your best effort in that moment. And at least that way, I feel like you can never lose if you know at the end of the day, like, you gave it your all. So I hope that gives you a little reassurance. The last two things I'm going to get into are a little bit technical, and they are things I have kind of, I will say, like, messed up in the beginning, and that's okay. You learn with time. So the first is breaking tools. It can happen sometimes, especially in the beginning. Like, you don't have the same assurance. Even just like holding certain things, like, you might put it down too hard, things can break. So my advice is to just be very mindful of what you're using. Be gentle with things, whether it is a steamer, like, be conscious of how much water you pour in. If it is a high frequency wand, be careful how you place it down. If it is a dish, make sure when you wash it, you are just not like throwing it in the sink. So I have made those little mistakes and broken small items, and it is okay. Hopefully your work is understanding, especially if you are newer. But I think if you are just mindful and try to be very careful and gentle with things, I think bosses take notice of that. Next, this is kind of funny because I think it is something, again, you learn with time. But as a newer Estie, I didn't totally grasp like the importance of setting the stage in your room for your clients. You want to make it as like relaxing and appealing as possible. So that means crisp sheets, like no dust anywhere, things look clean. Hopefully there's like a nice aroma in the air. You can use some essential oils, but just keep your room really crisp, clean, and like inviting, smelling nice. Your music should be at a decent volume. It should be like nice, relaxing spa music. So I just think knowing the importance of the ambiance is something, even if you think people don't notice, like, it really is the little things. And that's one thing I have learned working at my current job. Like, even if somebody doesn't automatically think, wow, like, she did a really nice job making the bed, they will just walk in and feel safe and secure already by how you set the stage of the room. And in my podcast, I talk about the first facial I ever got and how it changed my life. Like, looking back, I can't remember specific things and how the room was, but I also just felt so at home and safe and secure. And you just have to know, like, the esthetician was mindful and she created that environment. So that is something really, really important. Crisp sheets, so underrated, but I think very, very important. Going off of that, one thing I wanted to say was in my first job, I hadn't learned this yet, and I would finish facials and leave maybe like my enzyme dish, like dirty dishes or products out, and I just wasn't aware that things should be put back exactly as they were before the facial started. I hadn't been taught that, so I didn't think of it, but it is something I think that is very important, and you don't want your clients to open their eyes to a facial and see things like left about the room. It's not an appealing or inviting sense of environment. So keep things clean, obviously sanitary, but put things away as you go. Like, take your time. People won't mind if you're like putting little things away as you go, and that way when they open their eyes and they've had the best facial ever from you, they feel good. And it's, again, one of those subconscious things that even if people don't think of, they think of you as a professional, if that makes sense. The last thing I want to say, and this is, again, another little technical thing, and it is something I have learned from feedback. So I have made this mistake of overusing product. I think it's, again, as a new Estie, you're not always mindful of how little you need, actually, especially with professional products. These are highly concentrated products, and they're very active, so you don't need like handfuls in general. You don't need like handfuls and pumps of product and cleanser and serums. So I think your bosses will appreciate if you are just using the correct amount of products, and that way you are giving the best facial possible. You are using the recommended amount, so just don't go overboard. I know it's something some people can kind of do at home, and it's a habit you can take into the treatment room, but just be aware of the correct amount of product you need and be mindful of how much you are using. Alrighty guys, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed these tips. If you did, it would mean so much if you gave it a big thumbs up and like this video. Don't forget to subscribe before you go, and I will see you in the next one.